What is going on, guys? Welcome back to part 4 of the engine teardown video, where you'll see behind me there's not that much left to do, so we'll just get straight into it, get it down to the block, and hopefully the whole thing will be disassembled at the end of this video. If you haven't saw the previous videos 1, 2 and 3, click that link and it'll take you to my recent upload, which is number 3, and you can watch it through from the start if you go back onto the channel. If you have saw them, thank you very much. Hopefully you've enjoyed them, you've liked, commented, maybe subscribed as a result. And yeah, let's get straight to it. As you can see, we're nearly there. So the timing belt needs to come off. I think we'll do that first. Then we can get the cam covers off, both sides. The sides of the engine, there's nothing left. The back, again, nothing left. Managed to get the water tube out off camera, but to be honest with you, it wasn't that bad. Just got a slide hammer that came straight off. But first things first, we'll tackle the timing belt. Hopefully we don't bend any valves. And let's just try and get it off. Right, so the Mitsubishi manual states that when you're taking the timing belt off, the rear cams, I think, are sat in a neutral position. So when you take the belt off, these won't spring like the front will. So what you do with the front is these two 17mm bolts on the front. You're supposed to get 2 spanners, get them on the bolts, cross them over, and then cable tie the middle to hold both the front cams with the valves down. I can't remember what cylinders they're on, but some of the valves stay down when you're changing the belt. So if you're doing this in the car to change the belt and keep it all in time, that's what you do. Whereas we're taking this off to strip everything down. So I'm going to do it anyway, just so I can manually release the tension off the cams, just to make sure everything's fine. But I don't 100% know if at this point it's necessary, but I'm just going to do it purely as a precaution to make sure that when I take the timing belt off, nothing goes wrong in the engine and possibly cost me more than it needs to, considering it's already in a bit of a state. So we'll get the two 17mm spanners, and as I said, you get one on there. Usually it works better with gooseneck, but I haven't got goosenecks. And we'll get one on there, try and get them to cross over. So we'll get them like that. We'll cable tie them in the middle, and that should hold them 2 spanners together. So when we take this timing belt off, these cams don't jump. Right, so now that they're on there, nice and tight, it shouldn't slide, but no, my luck, they might. So put one down the middle just to be extra sure. To get them on there to keep that as tight as I physically can. And then down here, I'll take you off the stand to show you. Down the bottom, this is a hydraulic tensioner. So in here there's fluid, hydraulic fluid, and this pin presses on this arm, which in turn swings this up, and then this pulley keeps the tension on the belt as it comes around, and that's what stops the belt from going slack. If your belt starts to go slack, chances are this might have gave in, and this isn't putting tension on this. So you'd have to change that. But what you can do is, if you see a little hole on the side there, if you take this off, I'm probably going to get a new one because I don't want to reuse old stuff. There's a little hole. If you get that pin right the way back, you put something in there to keep the pin back. When you put it back on, you pull the pin out, and then that adds tension to the belt again and keeps it all taut, like so. But for this, we're going to need to take these 2 bolts off to get this off. That'll drop the tension on the belt, and then we can pull the belt off the front of the engine. Now we can see the belt is nice and loose, ready for it to be pulled off, like so. Right, so now I've cut the cable ties off the spanners. I'm going to slowly let the tension off the cams so they sit where they want to, and let it make sure all the valves are up and the cams on. Gonna damage the valves and vice versa. So now that they're off, the belt's off, the timing belt tension is off, all this was free to get to. Take the water pump off and you can keep going. Right, so now the timing belt's off, the next thing to get off is the water pump, which does still freely spin, but if you look around the water pump, you can probably see from there there's a fair bit of limescale. I think it's because it's aluminium, but there's like corrosion, so there's been leaking. So I would have changed it regardless, but that definitely needs changing. I have got a spare, and then as well as the timing belt and these idlers and the tensioner idler, all that I already have, but there's still so much more I'm going to need to buy. So we'll get this off and we'll see what condition it actually is in. So now that they're out, this should hopefully just pull off, but looking at the corrosion around it, I think I might need to give it a bit of a tap, but I'll try. Ah, that's disgusting. Yeah, clearly been leaking. The gasket's obviously failed, which is evident based on the lime scale around the edge of it again. Because this is aluminium, all of it, you get lime scale instead of rust, but because the block itself, I think, is cast iron on this. I might be lying, but it's full of rust, so I'd assume so. But I think you can see on the inside, I'm very glad I've got a fresh one, because no one in the right mind would have put that back on the engine expecting it to work. Just give you a little glimpse, that is what was behind the water pump. So obviously they're the coolant passages between the block. That was all the crap behind it, and yeah, it's all going to need cleaning out. So the water pump timing belt's off on the table over there. I took the idlers off because there's no point doing it on camera, that would just be boring. So now we'll get the 3 spark plugs out the front, have a look at them to see what the condition was like before the engine stopped running, and then we'll take the cam cover off, see what condition the cams are like, and hopefully there's still oil residue under that, otherwise my cams will be rusty. So they don't look too bad, they do look a bit wet, but I can live with that. Hopefully if they're all the same, then I know everything's ran as it was, but if they are different, that means there's some conditions that aren't right, because they should all be the same. See, that one looks quite dry. Looks like a bit of carbon build-up. Don't know if the camera will focus. So maybe this tells me the engine's been running a bit rich. So if the third's the same, then cylinder 1, with it being a bit wet, just might not have been burning the fuel as well. And again, must have been running very rich, because that carbon build-up on that spark plug is quite bad. Right, so now that the spark plugs are out, we'll get the cam cover off and we can see what condition the valves are the cams are in underneath, and hopefully we don't find any nasty surprises. So, because this has been on here quite a while, give it a bit of a tap around the edges with a dead blow hammer, something soft. And hopefully that should loosen up the gasket enough for us to pull this out and miss the bolt. But that only works when you get all your bolts out. There we go. And there it is. Let's have a look. And there's very much still a lot of oil left in that. So it's nice to know nothing's rusted, but is everything where it should be? That's the next question. So at first glance, everything looks fairly okay. Everything is where it should be, which is always a good start. There's still a bit of oil left on it, even though it has been sat for 2 years, which is always a good sign, because they don't have any rusty cams. But they definitely need cleaning and fresh oil going in, because that oil looks minging. Whoever had this car before me clearly doesn't do regular oil changes, because I understand oil is supposed to look dirty and black, but that smells foul. So yeah, when we rebuild this, we'll be servicing it regularly to give the engine the best chance it's got, because so far it's looking quite promising, which I'm happy with. Right, so we'll spin the engine, we'll take off the rears, and hopefully that looks as promising as the front. There we go. exactly the same as the front. Still a fair bit of oil left in it, enough to keep it from rusting. And again, oil is minging, but it's there, which is good. Because it looks like there's a bit of wear on the cam there, which we'll check on all the cams just to make sure everything is okay. But that looks like it's been scoring slightly, which is never a good sign. So there's the cams on the rear. These are the ones I was referring to when I said there's a bit of scoring or wear. See it just there. Hopefully it's not a major, doesn't look horrendous, but I am not a trained professional, so I don't actually know. But I got a second opinion. Everything else seems okay. Everything's in its position, all the lifters, all the followers. There your lifters on the bottom, there your followers on the top, there your cams. And before we take the cams out, it might be worth taking the cam sprockets off, front and rear. And to do that, you can see on the cam there's a big hexagonal cut, well, mould in the casting, so you can get a spanner on there, and you can get your breaker bar on there, get that loose, and get that off. So what I'm going to do next is, don't know if you can see because of the lighting, but down there, that is a big bolt. So is that one, so is that one. There's 8 head bolts on this side, same on the other side. I'm going to take the head bolts out, I'm going to take the heads off complete, so I'm going to leave the cams in the heads, along with the valves and everything else. All that will stay in the heads, I'll take them off. I'll put them on the bench over there as a complete unit, and then we'll strip the heads down on the bench, because I think it's better than stripping them down now and having more crap around the unit where there's the chance I could lose something, mix it up, whatever. So I'm going to take this off as a unit, going to take this off as a unit, and all that'll be left is the block on the engine stand as well as the oil pump, and then I'll flip it, take the sump off, because that's again a big piece, and we can see what the condition is at the bottom of the crank. We'll see what the condition of the big end bearings are, the same with the main journal bearings, and we can just inspect it better that way. And then I can do a separate video on the heads, because as you can see they're quite in depth. There's a lot going on, there's a lot you can get wrong, and there's a lot you need to make sure you get right. So I'll take them off as one, and then we'll have the block left on the engine stand. So with all engines, the head bolts and head studs are tightened in a sequence. That is to prevent the head from warping, so you don't end up with a wavy face on the bottom of the heads, because the last thing you want is your heads to warp, because you won't get a seal and it just causes so many issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen these off in the reverse order to how they're tightened. So in this corner here you'll see a picture of the tightening sequence for the heads. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to tighten, it's going to do that but reverse. So I'll start here, come down, across, up, down, down, up, up, and that should be enough for me to take the head off the block. Same for the opposite side, and then we'll be down to just the block and the oil sump, and we'll see what condition the piston faces are in. Right, so unfortunately my 10mm Allen socket is too wide to get to the head studs, because they clash with the cams, so they end up going in on a slight angle, and the last thing I want to do is strip out the head studs, or head bolts, sorry. So I've come up with a bit more of an ingenious way to do it without the socket, so let's just hope it works. So I'll get my non-ball ended Allen key, get that in there, and because it's a 10mm, I get a 10mm socket on my breaker bar, get on the head of the Allen key, and that should allow me to twist with enough leverage to break these bolts loose, and then I can just whiz them out with my hand with the Allen key, and then I can take the head off. Same for the opposite side. So again, 10mm on there, pull. So there's one. And the next one. And I'll just do this all the way around. So all the head bolts are loose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some cardboard, draw a diagram of this and label it rear, so I know it's the back of the engine. I'll take these bolts out and I'll put them in the holes based on where they are on the head. So then, should I need to reuse these, I'm going to try and get ARP head bolts, but if I need to reuse these, I can use them again and put them back in where they came from, so I know they're in the exact same hole I took them out of. So I'll do that very quickly. So here's me very crude drawing. So I'll put the bolts in the holes based on where they came from. And there we have it. The rear engine bolts are out, rear head bolts, sorry. So this head now is free, well, should be free. So I can rock it out and I can take it off, and we'll see the pistons underneath, as well as the cooling channels in the block, and we can see what condition all that's in, and hopefully there's no nasty surprises. So I'll put that on the bench and we'll get the head off. So here we are, big moment for this little V6. Let's give the head a tap and we'll try and get it off. And again, hopefully there's no horrible surprises. So let's come and loose it. There we go, getting loose. And we can try and lift it out. There it is. There's the big turbo pistons. There's the valves. Looking a bit sooty, but they can be cleaned, it's not that bad. Yeah, let's get this on the bench and we'll go around and have a look at the block. There it is, big V6 pistons. That one looks very wet, but I can't tell you why. I'm yet to check whether it's fuel or whether it's oil. Looks like it might be fuel, but again, bit of a carbon build-up, not too bad. That one. As you can see on the pistons, they say 72T. So I think that's because this block, with this engine, sorry, like I said in the first video, the engine code's 6G72, and the T means turbo. So if you've got an NA engine, I may be wrong, but if you've got an NA engine, so a non-turbo, you can't just turbo it because you need these pistons, which would also mean you need the connecting rods and stuff to go with, because they're stronger than the naturally aspirated pistons. But yeah, I'm actually quite happy with that. They don't look too bad. The cylinders don't look that bad either. Not much, if any, scoring that I can see. That's always a plus. That one's a bit shiny because of the excess fuel, it looks like. But as you can see, the cooling journals are all rusted. And we knew that based on the coolant we pulled out of the block. So repeat that process on the opposite side and I'll come back to you when it's just a block. So where it is, the front head, all the studs are out, all the bolts are out. They're in a little cardboard mock-up I've made, so I know where they go. Just going to give the head a tap, we'll pull it off, and hopefully the front looks just as good as the back. Right. That feels loose, and off she comes. There we go. Wow. Oh no. There's the bottom. See, it looks very wet. Stinks of fuel. Smells a bit oily as well. So them cylinders in the middle especially, absolutely caked with carbon and wet fuel by the smell of it. And then on your right, my left, that is absolutely soaked. So hopefully that's not serious, because that won't be good. There it is again. The front side looks a lot different to the back, as you can see. The back relatively clean, relatively dry, give or take that cylinder. The front is absolutely swimming in it. That one looks alright on the right hand side. But yeah. So we'll try and pull the head gaskets off both sides and see if there's anything underneath. Nope, that looks alright. I'm not going to reuse the head gasket. I am going to get a full gasket kit for this, because I don't really want to reuse anything on this engine unless I really have to. And the head gaskets are definitely not one thing I'm going to be reusing, because they're not fantastic. I think they will do the job, but I really don't want to use them. So they're getting changed along with every other gasket and seal on this engine while I'm in here. Take this side off. Stuck on there quite well. And again, same on the side, all okay. A bit dirty as to be expected. That gasket I don't think you could reuse, it's gone quite soft. You can see it's all bent and mushy, but it's not that bad. If I can, I might try and get a multi-layered steel head gasket, but I don't think it's necessary because this will be built up stock. And if these are the stock gaskets, then I can get the equivalent. And if I do ever modify the engine to the point of where I'll need an MLS, which is a multi-layered steel gasket, then the engine will be coming back out anyway, so I'll change it then, if I need to. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to rotate the engine on the stand, take the pin out, and hopefully with it having less on it, it should be easier to spin. Rotate this round so it's upside down, and take the oil pan off. Oh no. I forgot the forgot it had coolant in it. That's just gonna go everywhere anyway. There we go. Lovely stuff. And I'll wipe that up later. But for now, it's upside down. We'll get that oil pan off. We can check the crank, and hopefully the crank, big end bearings, rods and everything under this are in good condition, because that's where it starts to get very expensive. And I'll have to wipe that water up. So we got the engine upside down as you saw, and I soaked the floor, but clean the floor up. Oil slump's ready to come off. I'm going to use the impact because, well, it's a crap impact, but there's loads of bolts on this and hopefully they shouldn't be too tight. There we go. Now the slump's nice and loose, we'll pull it off. And the moment of truth, because this will tell us a lot about the condition of this engine, and hopefully this bit is empty, and if it's not, we've got bigger problems to deal with. So let's hope that's not the case. There it is. Oh no. Yeah, that's not good. I'll bring you down and I'll show you why. Well guys, sorry to be that guy, but you're going to have to wait for part 5 to see what's wrong with the GTOs engine. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this video, so remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, turn on that notification bell so you'll get an update when I post part 5, and any other videos on the GTO so you can stay up to date with the build. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Afraid to turn out the lights? Is there